back to the Blazer Victory Podcast. John Duncan here, and I'm joined as always with my co-hosts Darian Smith and Jimmy Marion. Guys, unfortunately, UAB took a loss today. In week two, as it always seems to happen, 49-35 to Georgia Southern. So UAB falls to 1-1 on the season. But this game recap and all game recaps this season are sponsored by Cahaba Brewing Company. And, last week I talked about the Cahaba Pale Ale. This week I'm going to talk about one of my favorite IPAs out there, the Oka Uba IPA. Thank goodness I had a few of those tonight. Elizabeth and I were able to go out Friday night to the brewery where, I failed to mention last week, they've got more than just beers on tap. They've got 26 beers, but they've also got cocktails. So, hey, even if you don't like beer, they distill there a little bit and have some great mixed drinks. So definitely check out Cahaba Brewing Company. Again, you can always go to their website, and we actually embed that into the podcast link. But if not, if you're driving and want to check it out later, it's cahababrewing.com. But thank you again to Cahaba. And guys, let's talk about when was the last time UAB's given up 49 points to a non-Power 5 team. And I don't know if Darian or Jimmy want to go. I can't even remember a time, but I feel like we've got to start with this defensive performance that we saw tonight out of the UAB Blazers. And I'm going to throw it to Darian to get his initial thoughts.
Yeah, the first thing that sticks out to me is I saw Davis Brin sending emails. I saw Davis Brin sending emails to a couple of guys in the pocket. I think I saw him go to Starbucks and come back and enjoy a venti mocha latte. I also saw him watch a couple of episodes of whatever is new on Netflix. He didn't get any. Did he get pressure by anybody?
I don't think so.
Anybody? Did anybody? I mean, it could have been us. Were we out there trying? I tried to get through him on the TV. Like I don't think that worked. So we got no pressure. We barely got any TFLs. We barely got any tackle for losses. I don't know what we did on defense. I can't name you one defender that played well. Nobody stood out. And it's funny because if you really watched that North Carolina A&T game and you didn't just stat watch, you could see some of these deficiencies. Yeah. And it was kind of scary, They didn't have to run the ball, and their best asset is their running back. When they were running out the time, they said, they've been Swiss cheese over the middle. Let's just keep throwing the ball. Because did we stop it? No. It felt like every time they was getting 6-7 yards a pop, and it was so disheartening because our only stops really was a dropped ball. We didn't I'm glad that we got the interception, but let it be known that it wasn't by a play that we forced. It wasn't pressure. It wasn't good coverage. He dropped the ball, okay? And a fumble when they were going in to score. We got lucky. Did we I think we got one. They punted once, I believe.
I don't think they punted once.
Did they punt once, or didn't convert on fourth down? Or did we?
I think it's the 2 turnovers was the only time they didn't.
Oh, God. Well, that's worse than I thought. Well, so obviously it's going to be a lot of question marks going into this Louisiana game, man. And I know that we're still reviewing this game, but where's the pressure? Where's the sheer tackling? Jackson Bratton, never heard of him. Don't know where he was at this game. I saw Everett Rousseau make some plays on the edge. I guess he was the one that played okay. I hate to say this, but we need our guy. We need Fish. Fish in these moments always seem to make plays, and I just haven't seen that special play. Our DB, safeties, anybody. I'm trying to find anybody on defense. Offense, we put up 35 points with with 3 turnovers, the kids are in here going crazy, y'all. So y'all might hear some, but the offense put up 35 points. Even with 3 turnovers, they put up 35 points. Our our defense didn't help them at all. And Sione, Tafao, uh, I think this was like a introduction to college football for him because Georgia Southern is a good offense. They're a really, really good offense led by Brian Ellis. Shout out to B. Ellis. But I think he'll be able to take this experience and grow from it. You know, this was tough. This was his first real test, and I'm gonna look at it, you know, glass half full, and I think that he comes out Louisiana. We know more about this team, and I think he'll know what buttons he could press. Hopefully.
All right, I'm gonna throw it to Jimmy to get his initial reaction and thoughts.
I mean, Darian covered a lot of stuff there. The one thing I wanted to just reiterate was Darian's last statement about Georgia Southern and their prolific offense. So, you know, it's not a surprise to me that Georgia Southern put up a lot of points. The fact that they put up so much through the air, they were not successful really running the ball. They didn't have to run the ball as much because of how much success they were having through the air. Defensively, you know, I know it's hard after a game like that to think who really put on. I mean, you look at the stat sheet, and Swoops had a good night on paper. So welcome back, Swoops, to the team. He was credited with 9 tackles. So, I mean, that's something Ike Rao had 7 as well. So, I mean, they held down the fort a little bit. But Darian hit it. The lack of pressure. Davis Brin didn't have a sweat. Dude didn't even have to take a shower after the game. That guy didn't. That's right. He's going straight to the after party. And it does hurt a little bit with a former UAB quarterback on the sideline doing what he did to us tonight. Of course, we wanted, you know, a better result. I think what really is going to be interesting for us as we dive back into the film and we do the after review is the question is how much, Darren asked it during the game, how much of this is correctable, you know? And right now, you know, I want to try to be as optimistic as I can and say it's really the first test that we've had against a good offense. And, you know, another note is it did not help at all right off the bat to have a turnover on the very first offensive play of the game and put the defense in that position, right? So before you blink an eye, you know, Georgia Southern's up 7-0. We're on the road in a good environment. And when you've got a defense that's trying to find their way, that didn't help them at all. So there was a couple guys out there that tried to make some plays, but not a lot of great takeaways, right, from the defense. But how about we talk about some offense, John?
Hold on. Darian's got some thoughts.
Defense is one thing. Defense is one thing to be as bad as we were today on defense, but special teams, when special teams stand out as awful, like all around, the only highlight we had, the highlight of the game was the 2-point conversion play, but then it was negated because we tried to do it again, and it was like, why did we even try to do that? I didn't get it, but I mean, kickoffs, we can't kick it into the end zone. We kick it short, and then we can't cover. Like, I think we punted, and I guess the punt was good. Didn't we have a good punt? I guess. And we had good punt coverage. That was the only thing. We're not making easy field goals. We missed a 28-yard chip shot last week. This week it was from 35 straight down the pipe. That was the, as Jimmy said, that was the halftime. Can you win a car kick? You know, and I mean, could somebody help me there? You know, I don't know. I had a couple drinks, so I know I'll say something wild. So let me just stop it right there.
Yeah, again, shout out to Cahaba Brewing Company with the Oka Uba IPAs tonight, definitely helping us a good bit. But yeah, I mean, you guys have said it. Defensive performance miserable. Special teams lacked a lot to be desired, and I mean, if you're offense, if you're Alex Mortensen, outside of that first play fumble and outside of the bad Zeno pick, I mean, you couldn't have done much better outside of those couple plays. And I thought Zeno performed well tonight. Outside of that one interception, just short ball thrown to Dallas Payne. We were watching here; he was wide open, and I know he had pressure on the backside. Jimmy, we talked about that before we went on. But you've got to make those throws, and if you're going to make that throw, that's a tough throw for a quarterback to make. But yeah, I thought the offense was solid. Offensive line that first quarter lacked very little to be desired. But give them credit. Darian said, yeah, they recovered. I think Luke Jones is still hurt. So yeah, he did not have a great game. But I don't know. I mean,
how much can we lean? I'm asking.
hold on.
I hope the mic can pick this up, but I know Jacob Zeno had the turnovers, right? But how much pressure did we put on Jacob Zeno to make so many plays? I thought Isaiah Jacobs was having a fantastic game, and I thought that he maybe deserved more carries because Skull didn't seem like regular Skull. He seemed a little too riled up, and Isaiah Jacobs just seemed more reliable. This game is the word that I'm looking for, but I think we maybe put a little bit too much on Jacob Zeno to make so many plays because he bailed us out a lot. So I give him grace for whatever turnovers that occurred because he was the only one playing. And then shout out to Iverson Strap Hooks. That guy was balling. Like, our receivers are good. Yeah. Jimmy, I'm kicking over Jimmy. What's the stat?
Yeah, Hooks finished with 6 catches, 80 yards, a score that's 13.3 on average. So, yeah, I mean, it was really his coming out party. So, I mean, again, we're probably going to be talking about Strap all season. The fact that he went into the transfer portal there for a moment, Dilfer was able to convince him to come back and was just telling that guy, like, hey, I'm going to feature you in this offense. And we saw that starting tonight, so that's really good. But going back to the Jermaine Brown and the Isaiah Jacobs conversation, I mean, Darian's feel of the game, look at the stats on paper, too, is that Jermaine Brown had, I think it was 13 carries, and he averaged 2.6 yards a clip. And you got Isaiah Jacobs, who I think had, and Jacobs had 8 carries for 47 yards and almost 6 yards a clip in the score. So, Jermaine Brown, again, I think that opening, it was just, I can't express like how difficult it is when you go into a tough environment in a big time game, and on the very first touch, you give the ball to the other team. Like, that had to affect him. It affected the defense. We talked about that. It affected the offense because then, you script this play. You go out in the second drive, and I know you're going to run through the same script. But, I mean, you're down 7. You just gift-wrapped him 7 points. But, yeah, offensively, just to kind of piggyback off of that, like, I feel still really good about the offense. And I'll say this, too. We were talking about Zeno, is that in the offseason we heard a lot about whether it was offensive line, they're replacing 5 starters. I think the jury's still out in the offensive line. They've had some good moments. They've had some in the first quarter we talked about that weren't good. We heard also that, from the skeptics that we didn't make a quality hire. That's going to be a story. I think the jury is definitely still out because it's so early on that. But also another thing that skeptics said was that they were out on Jacob Zeno. I don't think it's too early to say they're wrong. Like what we've seen from Zeno in 2 games, he was running around, especially there in that first quarter, and he didn't get rattled. Now, I will say this at the end of the game, what stinks is he ends pretty much the game on a sack fumble, but I mean, he was hit. He had the one bad throw. He had another throw that he probably wishes he could take back that probably could have got picked as well. But when you throw the ball 40-plus times with a guy that still is getting his bearings into place, as it relates to being a starter, I just want to say one of my takeaways is it's not too early to say that the skeptics are wrong about Jacob Zeno. And if we can continue to get some chemistry on the offensive line, we know the receivers are good, that this offense can be prolific. Like Georgia Southern prolific, what they did to us tonight, what we can do against other opponents. But it's going to continually go back to defense and special teams as it relates to, are we going to reach bowl eligibility, or are we going to reach, anything further than that? So.
Yeah, great points, Jimmy. Darian, I want to kind of toss it over to you because, you were alluding to earlier, I think before we hopped on, or no, while we were on, that they might be asking Zeno to do too much in this offense. But then again, that might be the Alex Mortensen and Trent Dilfer offense because we've, heard from Trent and, Alex in interviews that they want to put a lot on their quarterbacks. So, and yes, we know Jacob really wants, at least that one ball back that he threw the interception that was intended for Dallas Payne. But let's talk about, kind of accountability and in making this offense prolific. I mean, I think the offense philosophy they have is good. But by God, when you run outside in the first half, 5 or 6 times, and then 5 out of those 6 times were for negative yards, you've got to kind of just say, okay, scrap that. We've got to do something different. And what I liked, I think they got a little more towards doing that in the second half, but what they did in the North Carolina A&T game was, okay, let's let our pass game be an extension of the run game. Throw it out, quick wide receiver screen, get Palmer on the drag or get Hooks out and get, 5-6 yards. I think they did a good job with that. And I also think they kind of did a better job in the second half, too, on just kind of running up the middle. And I know, Darian, while we were watching the game, you were screaming, forget that outside crap. You've got to just run it up the middle if you're going to run it at all to try to get some positive yards.
Shout out to Alex Mortensen. I think he did a good job of recovering. I don't think he didn't have a good first quarter calling the game, if I'm just being straight. But that's what you play the game for. You get a feel, you know what's working, you know what's not, and then you adjust. And I think he did a good job of adjusting his play call, especially the running calls. That long handoffs outside zone, oh my God, that was driving me nuts. And they were getting so much penetration. It was taking so long to read the defense. By that time, they're all up our offensive line. I couldn't even tell if we were blocking good or not because that play call was so long and drawn out. I couldn't really tell you what was missing. I think a couple of our O-linemen had kind of a rough game. I can say that Will Parker kind of had it rough. He got beat a couple times visibly to the point that the commentators were talking about it. And, of course, I'm not sure if Luke Jones was all the way healthy because he got beat bad a couple of times. But for the most part, I feel like they recovered well. And a lot of times in life and in football, it's about responding. And I feel like Alex Mortensen responded well. I feel like our offensive line responded well. I would have liked to see Jacobs get more carries. But going on with Zeno, was he asked to do too much? Sometimes it's kind of hard to say that because you think about Patrick Mahomes, right, and you think about the Kansas City Chiefs. You're gonna put the ball in the hands of your best player, and especially if he's making plays. And he was the guy that was making plays for us. And we had 35 points, and we had 3 turnovers along with that 35 points. We had a defense that didn't help us whatsoever. At some point, the defense has to get the ball back. I mean, he had the interception, but come on. They got the interception. They got the fumble, So I guess you can say that they got the ball back sometimes. But but the defense didn't help whatsoever, so it wasn't any support there. Shout out to Jacob Zeno. I think he did what he could do, and he got us through that first half. We had the lead. We did not deserve to have the lead to be 22. We did not deserve. You saw it. They got the ball back, and they scored in 50 seconds. Yeah. A touchdown. It was just so disheartening. But I think he's a superstar. So I think what we need to do is we just need to find a better balance. I think whatever game it is, sometimes the passing game is going to open it up for the running game and vice versa. And I just think we need to know where we at on that scale. And we have to get outside our own ego, and we have to see what's working, go with that, and then go back and then implement the run game. It seemed like we was trying to force the run game, and that cost us in the beginning. So I guess that's all I got for that.
All right, I think we better wrap this up. Again, hey, I mean, there's got to be some accountability in that locker room, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
What do you think we can fix on defense?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, if you can't tackle and they can't fix tackling, it's going to be a long year. And you got really good – I mean, not as good as – okay, real quick before we wrap this up, we say Georgia Southern is good, but the jury is still out on Georgia Southern. Like, we're going to see what happens the next few weeks. Exactly. Is the Georgia Southern offense really that good, or is UAB's defense just really that bad? And I mean, the jury's still out. You know. Yeah, listeners. Hey, let us know what you think. You know, comment on the site or on Twitter. Hey, share this. Is hope? Do we have hope? Yeah, that's what Darian's saying. Jimmy, do you have something?
I was just gonna say, hey, we're in the BV man cave tonight, and John before dinner, he said a blessing over dinner. Dinner was great. It was fantastic. I'm gonna blame John real quick because he didn't say no blessing over that defense tonight. And before we go into our Week 3 matchup against Louisiana, I need John in that chapel roll at the 50-yard line before the game, and you need to be saying some blessings on that defense, man, because we need it. So.
Yeah, well, Darren, you got something else?
I was trying to find the game, the Louisiana. What's the?
Yeah, did they beat ODU? Hold on. Let's check that real quick in real time. I mean, but
that's going to be. ODU beat Louisiana. Did they? Hey, and that's going to be the thing, man. Like, we're down right now, right? This is a live reaction. This is right after the game. Like, we're going to be better tomorrow. It's week 2, but everybody show up next week with some kind of energy to protect the stadium. We've been here before. We've been here a lot, losing in week 2. So I'm not going to say before. We've been here quite a lot. Yeah, we've been here a lot, and then we've responded as a team. So I know it's a new staff. I know it's a new year, but it's so early. So show out to protect the stadium. Bring some people next week. Let's have a good game. Georgia Southern was a good test because it was the next game, and I do think that we learned some stuff tonight. I do think that Louisiana is going to be potentially the next test, right? Because I don't consider Louisiana as prolific as Georgia Southern, and at the same time, they are certainly better than North Carolina A&T. And so this is a game in which we need to continue. Darren asked, what can we do better defensively? It starts with fundamentals. So it starts with tackling right away. And offensively, we've got to protect the ball. You do a couple of those things, and I think that it's going to be highly likely that we can come out next week. I'm optimistic. On which side? Both? I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me defensively is pressure. So I'm looking for some type of pressure to make the quarterback on the other side uncomfortable. That's going to be key for me because we're so used to it, right? We've got this size on the edge that looks like fearsome, right? You've got 6'5" on one side and 6'6" on the other, big guys. And we've got some guys that are highly touted in the middle too. And I know Georgia Southern, we talked about it, gets the ball out quick. But I don't know, man. Again, he didn't sweat their quarterback. So I'm looking for defense for us to apply pressure. Offensively, I mean, what am I looking for? It's hard to, nitpick offensively. The first thing that comes to mind is, to protect the ball. I think if we protect the ball, then we easily put up 40-something points tonight. But I think if Georgia Southern does their thing, they put up 60. So it's not like it would have mattered per se. So, offensively, I want to see us continue to get the ground game going. We haven't really seen the ground game to what we're accustomed to, so I'd like to see some more of that, to your point, balanced, Arian. But, again, everybody show out next week. Let's get crazy and protected. Let's go to 2-1. Let's bounce back, and let's get back on the right side of things.
Two things I'll be looking for next week. Front seven. So not only pressure, which Jimmy just spoke about, but our linebackers they were on milk cartons. Only thing I can say is Everett Rousseau made some tackles out on the edge with his speed. Other than that, what linebackers? I don't know any plays that they made. They didn't impact the game at all. I hate to say it, but inside, they collapsed the pocket a couple times, but we didn't have any edge pressure. But we didn't do anything. What the TFLs, the momentum, all the momentum plays on runs. all the momentum plays on runs, they scored touchdowns or they got whatever yardage they needed to get. Our whole front seven linebackers, when it comes to run and passing game, what are we? Because we look like a team you want to play against if you're if you're a good offense. And then it's gonna be I want to see what our DC Sione, I want to see what kind of looks he's going to be able to give us because a lot of eyes are going to be on him, rightfully so. This is college football, right? I can look him in the eyes as a man and tell him all the eyes are going to be on you. But what as fans, what we have to remember is we can be mad and we can do all of that, but we have to believe that our DC and that our head coach is going to get the defense right, and that we're going to be ready to go. So let's close this thing on out, man.
All right, yeah, big game next Saturday against Louisiana. Both teams are going to be trying to get off the losing streak and get things righted. Honestly, a must-win game for both teams come Saturday. So we definitely, like Jimmy and Darian said, we need you guys out to Protective Stadium. I think it's Kids Day, Kids Takeover Day, so bring your kids, be loud. And oh, yeah, they took over in the Duncan household. Yeah, that's for sure. We had a Booger Jimmy and snoring Darian and game-watching John. So I'll take that. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this out. Again, shout out to Cahaba for these sponsoring these game recaps. And patreon.com/BlazerPod. We will have more in-depth takes when we actually review the film on this Georgia Southern game. But I'll go ahead and close this out. Blazer Nation, spit fire.